This is RFD Today, a daily look at the key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your income, and your community. Here's your host for today's program, Bill Yankee.
Hey, good Friday to you, Illinois. Thanks for joining us for this adventure in broadcasting on the 12th of April, just ahead of Palm Sunday and Easter on the 21st. And talked several times about, does a late Easter have anything to do with what planting season looks like? And some meteorologists we talked to don't even want to get into the subject because I'm sure they've heard plenty on both sides of the argument. But boy, looking at forecasts in a lot of places in Illinois today, wind certainly seems to be the predominant factor, especially in the northern half of the state. Not necessarily to the south, but the wind being part of, I guess, just the outskirts of what other states have gone through. Hearing stories about more than 20 inches of snow, and now in places up in Minnesota and surrounding states, total whiteout conditions. And then the thing that I've really been intrigued by, I've heard this from two different folks, one in Iowa, one over in Kansas City, where they would get rain and then their car would be filled with dust. And the raindrops apparently were carrying dust from West Texas. And like professional weather people have actually confirmed that sort of thing. So just a fascinating chain of events. Hey, on the program today, Bill Bodine at Illinois Farm Bureau, and we'll talk about hemp, which has been making its way through the lawmaking process in Illinois. Also, Don Schaefer at Midwest Truckers. He'll be along in our monthly visit, and Lindsay Ramsey at Illinois Farm Bureau. We'll talk about dicamba primarily, but also a reminder that Monday is the deadline to make your comment public toward the proposed changes to the Clean Water Rule, and we will get into that later in the program as well. All to come here on a Friday, RFD Today.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
If you're in the mood for some sprucing up, you're in luck. From big to small or farm to front yard, your Illinois Farm Bureau member discount from John Deere is ready and waiting to help. It's easy to think green when it's the Rewards Loyalty Program with savings on equipment, special parts, and home and workshop products. Whether your tasks involve mowing, planting, or cleaning, you'll be set for whatever your work requires. All you need to do is sign up, have your membership number handy, and go to johndeere.com/Farm Bureau.
RFD Radio Network's DeLoss Yankee connects rural routes for you. DeLoss delivers essential farm and food-related news to our listeners. His witty voice has been heard on the air for more than 2 decades. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
Growing up on a farm prepared me for my career. I try to know a little about a lot of things and let the people I interview be the experts. I've always wanted to be on the radio. I'm just happy to do what I enjoy.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Welcome back to RFD Today on Friday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. We'll head down to Springfield now, the second home for Bill Bodine, our Assistant Director of State Government at Illinois Farm Bureau. Bill, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Well, thanks for doing this. We appreciate it because I know there's so much going on, especially as we get into mid-April here. But if we could just get an update on industrial hemp in Illinois and JCAR and what's been moving in recent days.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure. Earlier this week, JCAR, as you said, the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, which is a committee of lawmakers that approves administrative rule proposals, did just that. They approved the proposed administrative rules for the production and licensing of industrial hemp in the state of Illinois. So with that approval, the Department of Agriculture can now move forward and start the licensing process sometime in the very near future.
Wow. So this thing's moving along, then. This may take shape, actually.
It is moving along, and we're pleased by that. We had been encouraging the Department of Agriculture and the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules to approve the rules so that the licensing process could begin and farmers could possibly get those licenses in time for a 2019 planting season, which it looks like they will hopefully be able to do.
Yeah, and those, I think, who have been most interested in it have already had plenty of their agronomic questions answered with the assumption that they'd be able to go in. But I'm sure there's plenty of caution still as part of the whole process.
There is. This is obviously a very new crop for Illinois farmers. I think there's still a lot to be learned about this particular crop. I mean, industrial hemp, as we know, was grown in the U.S. and in Illinois decades ago, but it's been a long time since that's actually occurred, and so there's a lot of lost knowledge, and I think there's a big learning curve for farmers. I also think, obviously, this market has to develop, and we don't have any processors yet registered in the state of Illinois, and so farmers should be looking forward towards where they may be able to sell this crop before they decide if they want to put it and plant it on their particular properties, so that they know that they'll have a viable marketplace where they can sell it once we get around to the harvest season.
Yeah, the corn price isn't great, but we still have options of places to sell corn. But if I'm going to fill an entire Morton building or something similar to that, I hopefully am going to know where that's going to go at some point.
That's correct. I think I would suggest that farmers have an idea of where they're going to sell this new crop before they move forward here, because the market is still developing, especially in the state of Illinois. There are some other states who have had some active programs for up to 5 years, but Illinois is still developing, and so it's important to know where you may want to sell that crop so that you've got a market once harvest comes around.
Yeah, it's a total chicken and egg thing, isn't it? I mean, why would I devote too much to a processing facility if I don't know if anyone around that facility is going to plant it? And if I grow it and, oh, darn it, the facility's 300 miles away, then that didn't help me either. So it's part of, I assume, the growing pains.
It is. It's part of the market developing. As I said, this is very new, so everybody is learning through this process. I have heard that there are some folks interested in developing processing facilities here in the state, which is good. I know there have been some folks in conversations, as an example, with the Department of Agriculture about the registration process for becoming a processor in the state of Illinois, which is a good signal that they're interested in developing those facilities, which will be good. But as I mentioned, it's developing. We're learning, and we're developing a new market.
Now, this is different than planting corn in the sense that there's a lot of reporting that takes place throughout the year. I mean, is that still the case? I know that was part of the initial discussions.
There is some reporting, yes. So industrial hemp is still a regulated crop. We've heard a lot. Obviously, there's an interplay here between state law and federal law and the federal farm bill. Many people have heard that the 2018 farm bill did legalize the production of industrial hemp nationwide. But it still is a regulated crop. You still have to have a license to grow it, and there will be some reporting requirements that you will have to report back to the Department of Agriculture, things like your harvest, so that they can track the production of the crop. While it's not marijuana, it obviously is a similar plant, and so there is some traceability needs there to assure that what is being grown is actually industrial hemp, and that it can be done so in a safe manner, and folks aren't trying to exploit a process to grow something that isn't industrial hemp.
Right. Well, imagine all the paper that goes around in the state capitol where you are, and even here back in the building. Just that alone makes you think, well, what if we had an alternative to that? What if it could come from Illinois farmers? So,
sure.
There is potential there by all means.
There is potential, and there's not only with the traditional fiber type of products, like you mentioned, paper or textiles or those kind of things that we think about when we think about industrial hemp. That's what a lot of people know, is it was grown for its fiber, for rope and textiles, as I mentioned. There are other uses as well, and so there are new markets developing with the use of the hemp grain for food products, and then there's new uses developing for what is called CDB, which some people believe has some beneficial health aspects to it. So there's markets even developing within the industrial hemp market that I think provides opportunities as we go forward.
Yeah. We have 1 minute here, Bill. If you could just a little comment about the at least the proposals or the plans toward graduated income tax.
Yes, there is many people have probably heard a proposal to amend the state constitution to allow for a graduated income tax in the state of Illinois. That did move out of a Senate committee here in Springfield earlier this week. It sounds as though the Senate will not be taking up that particular proposal on the floor of the Senate until we return from the 2-week spring break period. After today, the General Assembly will be taking a 2-week break around the Easter and Passover, as they usually do every year. So it sounds as though that particular constitutional amendment proposal will not be considered by the Senate until we return at the end of April. And we, as the Illinois Farm Bureau, are going to be communicating our opposition to that particular proposal to lawmakers over this break period.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. We appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Bill Bodine at Illinois Farm Bureau. Stay tuned. We'll have plenty more to come here on a Friday, RFD Today.
RFD Radio Network's Jim Taylor connects rural routes for you. You can trust Jim every morning for your overnight markets. He gets up early to help keep farmers on top of their game. Here's a bit about his rural routes.
I have the opportunity to cover something different every day and provide listeners with up-to-date markets, news they need to do their job and be successful, from legislative issues to crop updates and weather, of course.
Be it routes or routes, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
As you prepare for planting season, remember your neighbors. Whether you're an applicator, grower, or beekeeper, use FieldWatch to register your farm and monitor for sensitive sites around you. FieldWatch is a free, easy-to-use online mapping tool. Consulting FieldWatch is now a requirement for the over-the-top use dicamba products. Communicating with your neighbors will help you protect your farm and the environment. Don't wait. Go online to fieldwatch.com. Growing agriculture, we grow best together.
Farmers value clean water, and every day they're working to leave the land, air, and water in better shape for their families, neighbors, and future generations. In recent years, federal agencies have muddied the waters with overreaching rules and regulations that are more about controlling land than protecting water. The new Clean Water Rule announced by the Environmental Protection Agency and Army Corps provides clarity so farmers can comply with the law while protecting the environment, growing crops, and tending livestock. The new rule would end years of uncertainty over where federal jurisdiction begins and ends. Now's the time to make your voice heard. Text WATERS to 52886 and support the new Clean Water Rule proposed by the EPA and Army Corps. Don't wait. The 60-day comment period has begun, so text WATERS to 52886. Contact your local county farm bureau for more information on clean water and clear rules.
It can begin with an email, a phone call, a flyer in the mail, or perhaps a misleading website. Loan modification scams. They come in all shapes and sizes and under different names. Loan rescue firms, counseling services, mortgage consultants, sometimes posing as a legitimate mortgage company willing to help you modify your loan and get caught up with your payments. But beware, these are highly trained con artists looking to steal your home. They often know who you are, where you live, and because it's public record, know if you are on the brink of foreclosure. You're not alone, however. The National Crime Prevention Council and U.S. Department of Justice have partnered to help homeowners identify and steer clear of these scam artists.
McGruff the Crime Dog here. Protect your home and safeguard your finances. It only takes a little time to become informed. Start by finding a free legitimate housing counselor today.
Take the first step. Visit www.ncpc.org/mortgage-fraud. That's ncpc.org/mortgage-fraud. This message is from the National Crime Prevention Council and U.S. Department of Justice.
Welcome back to RFD today on a Friday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. And we'll just take the phone line right back down to Springfield again. Dandy Don Schaefer's on the phone from Midwest Truckers. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Mr. Bodine and I. We got the last day of the first half of the legislative session, I suppose the best way to put it, before they take a 2-week break. Big deadline day, so everyone's scrambling, so it's a busy one.
I'll bet. By the way, do you think the Cubs have hit the snooze button? What do you think?
Well, after last night, I don't know. I mean, we had some stable pitching, and I thought last night was a good, solid game, and old Joe Madden got kicked out, and maybe stirred up the poise a little bit. But I don't know. It's early in the season, I know, and I got to listen to all the Cardinal fans. So.
Hey, well, that's what happens when you sweep the Dodgers like that. You're gonna hear from them by all means.
Sure are.
That's the way it goes. But I want to talk about one thing here. But while I'm thinking about it, since I think April's distracted driving month, that's one thing. I mean, the number of incidents of vehicles hitting pulled over police cars is just astounding and heartbreaking and infuriating and all that. Part of getting over on the road includes letting the truck get over as well. I mean, we need to be cognizant of this sort of thing all the time, not just because there's been this heightened state of awareness with these accidents that have been taking place.
There is a proposal that's moving through the legislature right now. That would be an enhanced Scots law bill. It would, stiffen up some penalties, and we're watching it real carefully because we want to make sure that even though the bill would tighten things up, we've got to make sure though that the rights of the individuals who are driving the cars are also protected. From the standpoint of, as you exactly said. What if the other vehicle cannot pull over? What if they're on a 4-lane highway and there's another vehicle next to them? We are watching the legislation because a lot of other states, we have a Scots law. It says to slow down and that type of thing, or to move over. But we got to make sure that whatever they do says, what do you do if you can't pull over? Well, it should say slow down, and then maybe if you're going to write that legislation to make it say specifically, well, how much should you slow down? Because if an officer says, well, you didn't slow down, and the law just says to slow down, it doesn't say a number. So the guy could come back and say, well, it's a 70-mile-an-hour speed limit. I slowed down to 65. Is that enough?
Mm-hmm.
It's a purely arbitrary. Right now, the law is purely arbitrary.
Mm-hmm. So
if they're going to tighten it up, they need to put a specific number in there.
Wow.
And again, the big thing, though, more than anything else, is education. Scots law has been on the books for years, but I don't think that too many people had paid attention to it or thought much about it up until recently with all the spate of incidents that have happened. And from that standpoint, some education is very important here, and hopefully, the motorist. The big thing is motorists got to be cooperative. If a guy's in that lane and they see flashing lights up ahead, then hey, you got to pull over.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that when they changed the Scots law, the proposal is that anything with a flashing light on the side of the road is covered. It could be a tow truck, it could be a utility vehicle, it could be AAA service vehicle helping someone with a flat tire. It could be a police officer, it could be a fire truck, any of those. So it'd be all encompassing. So the basic premise should be is that if you see a flashing light, move over. If you can't move over, slow down.
Yeah. There shouldn't have to be a law when common courtesy should be enough, but that's where we are today.
Well, and we've done a lot of investigative work in terms of finding out what other states do in terms of their law. A lot of states put into the language. They say you must slow down by 20 miles an hour.
Wow.
Or you've got to do this or do that. And then if you don't, the officer, he can, that could be a moving violation. And if if someone's killed or injured, it could be a criminal violation.
A couple minutes here in this segment. What about, especially as you go into break, where have discussions been regarding the state's proposed changes for the motor fuel tax?
We've been actively involved, best way to put it, in these discussions. There are two proposals out there. We have put our name, Midwest Truckers, on a proposal that is being pushed by the Illinois State Chamber of Commerce. The bottom line, what this bill does, it doesn't include a motor fuel tax, but what it does is that it repeals or phases out the state sales tax that's on gasoline. When we passed the lockbox amendment that said that all monies collected on motor fuel taxes has to go for road, construction, bridge repair, that type of stuff. But it didn't say anything about the sales tax on motor fuel. And the sales tax collects just about as much as the motor fuel tax. We're saying truth in taxation. If you're going to put a tax on motor fuel, then every penny needs to go into the road funds for that construction, repair, those types of things. That's an important part of the chamber component. So even though their bill says it's going to raise motor fuel taxes by 25 cents a gallon, what it's going to do is take most of that state sales tax off of the pump price. And what does that do? Well, there you're talking, depending on the price of the fuel, it could be.
Hold that thought, Don. We got a break here. Hold that thought. We'll come back on RFD Today.
RFD Today, here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
Attention corn farmers. Your corn checkoff dollars are working with the U.S. Meat Export Federation to grow red meat export volumes. Because when we're exporting beef, we're also exporting corn. The beef industry consumes 28% of all corn fed to livestock, plus additional corn in the form of DDGs, a co-product of ethanol production. Now that's what we call working an angle. Your checkoff is working corn from all angles. Because of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board, your profitability is our bottom line. A message from the Illinois Corn Checkoff.
Does the warmer weather have you itching for a weekend getaway? Take your Illinois Farm Bureau membership savings with you.
Farm Bureau members can save up to 20% at choice hotels, including favorites like Comfort Suites, Sleep Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, with even more to choose from.
Call 800-258-2847 or visit the Choice Hotels website to search all the hotels at once and to make advance reservations.
Contact your local county farm bureau for your discount code number.
Hello, I'm Trooper Teal at the Illinois State Police. Since January 1st, 15 Illinois State Police officers have been hit as a result of failure to reduce speed and move over into the other lane. 2 of those officers sadly lost their lives. April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month. Be part of the solution. Put your phone down, focus on your drive, pay attention to the road, move over, slow down, just drive.
A message from the Illinois Farm Bureau and the Illinois State Police.
It's where your home is built, your landscape is planted, and your children play. Land is all around us, so Illinois farmers have dedicated years to learning how to best care for it. Today, we're bridging modern knowledge with resources from Mother Nature to promote natural soil activity and choosing crops that enhance soil health. To learn more about conservation efforts, visit ilfarmersconserve.com. Preserving our water, protecting our land, providing our food.
This message brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau.
All ag.
All Illinois.
All now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food.
When it comes to social media, Sabrina Berkowitz connects rural routes for you. Sabrina covers a broad range of ag topics, so Farm Bureau members are the first to know about key issues. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I grew up with a grain and livestock farm in my extended family, and today I really enjoy helping people learn how to use social media to advocate for agriculture.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
All right, welcome back to RFD Today on a Friday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Don Schaefer's down in Springfield, Midwest Truckers Association. And, Don, we talk about motor fuel tax. We could continue. You're talking about some transparency within the taxation.
Right, and to really condense it real quick. The proposal that we like is one that does raise the motor fuel tax, but it takes off the state sales tax, and the money would be offset by the increase in the motor fuel tax. What it also does, though, it removes the commercial distribution fee that truckers still pay. It's up to $400 a year that they've been paying since the Blagojevich administration put that on back in 2003. And the bills are smart because what it does, both bills, there are two bills out there that are being proposed, say we're going to index the motor fuel tax rate. So in other words, it's just going to go up with the rate of inflation. So we don't get stuck in this bind. And more importantly, and I think for your listeners it's very important to know that these bills both address the needs of local roads. Local roads need a lot of work. I mean, the interstates do, we know that. We see what they're looking like. But the local roads have really been shut out of the funding for the last 10 years. And so what this bill does, it puts a push toward helping to fund these local roads.
Right, and especially because a local road is not immune to trucks and heavy equipment and the burdens that can come with that.
And sure, and the funding mechanism for local roads is different than it is for state roads. State road projects, they get a lot of federal money, and that's fine. So it helps supplement that. Local roads, township roads, they depend on local tax dollars too. And so the idea is, we've hopscotched around this whole transportation funding issue for years. It's time to bite the bullet. It's time to say, hey, you know what? I need the roads. I need the roads to do my business. If I don't have good roads and safe roads, then I'm not going to be able to successfully do my job. And so this spreads out. I mean, it's not just for farmers. It's for rock, sand, and gravel haulers. It's for people who drive school buses. We've got a backlog of bridges that are starting to deteriorate. These need to be addressed. Anyone who drives, the interstates, they know exactly what they're like. Especially right now because wintertime hasn't been very kind to the pavement, so they've been taking a beating. So, are we saying we're sticking our necks out? Yeah, I think we are. I mean, truck operators probably spend more on motor fuel taxes than anybody else, but we're also the ones that use it, and we need to have that good infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. What else, whether it's in Springfield or more from federal, what else is on the docket for your group?
Well, we're very anxious to see what happens. Last week I had a chance to meet with Jack Van Steenberg, who is the Chief Safety Officer for Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration down in St. Louis. And the discussion is changes in the hours of service regulations. In other words, the rules about how much time you can drive and, more importantly, how much time you have to rest. Anyone who drives a truck knows that the rules are arcane. They especially don't like the part of the rules that say you have to take a mandatory 10 hours off, and it's got to be continuous hours. Anyone will tell you they don't know too many people who can take 10 hours and spend 10 hours in a sleeper bunk in the back of a truck. What they'd like to do is, the big push has been on, and it looks like DOT is going to consider it, is to come out with a proposal that says you can go back to the old practice of splitting up your sleeper time, as they call it, splitting up your rest time. So a guy can make more efficient use of the time he drives a truck. So instead of taking those 10 hours off, if he wants to drive and then maybe take 7 hours off, and then go back, drive for a while, and take the remaining 3, he can do that. Or they can switch it around. Say a guy's driving, but he doesn't want to get stuck in traffic, like going down St. Louis area or the Chicago area. He's going to say, hey, I'm going to drive maybe until 4 o'clock, then I'm going to take a rest for a couple hours. And then I'll get back on the road, a couple hours later. That way I'm not stuck in traffic. I make more efficient use of my time. I cover more miles. I'm not asking to drive more. I'm asking to be able to make better use of the time I have.
Right, and you can actually go farther that way.
Oh yeah, you do. But I mean, also, it's much more efficient use of your time. FMCSA, the USDOT, considered a lot of comments they heard on a proposed rule, and it sounds like that they're going to come out with their notice on this proposed change coming up fairly quick. And it'll be a good deal for truck operators because the hours that they're driving now, I mean, the rules that they're driving under are arcane. They're very inefficient, and they also, cut down productivity big time because a driver is forced to continue driving during rush hour congestion periods, and then they're forced to, and then try to find a place to park at night, which they cannot do. Yeah. So, from this standpoint, we think it will be successful because USDOT has said, yeah, we understand your problem. So we'll be watching the Federal Register for this to come out.
Sounds like progress, at least. Don, thanks so much. Yep, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, DeLoss.
Don Schaefer, Midwest Truckers Association, their executive director. And it's good to hear progress. We've been talking about that for quite some time. Sometimes cookie-cutter legislation doesn't quite work when it's tried to be put in practice, and this is certainly one of those cases. When we come back, Lindsey Ramsey, Illinois Farm Bureau, we'll talk dicamba, we'll talk Clean Water Act, and a whole lot more on a Friday, RFD Today.
When it comes to our members, Chris Magnuson connects rural routes for you. Chris leads Illinois Farm Bureau's efforts to provide valuable information to our members. He has spent 2 decades with IFB. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
I grew up on a farm with corn, soybeans, and Christmas trees. I've been in ag communication for 3 decades now. My greatest satisfaction has always remained the same, to serve our members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Warmer weather means a longer honey-do list. Your county farm bureau can help you stay on top of your project list and save you money along the way. A Farm Bureau membership offer includes discounts on equipment and supplies from Grainger, plus free shipping on all standard Grainger products. Browse thousands of items from landscaping equipment to power tools. Anything you need to get the job done, Grainger has it. Not a Farm Bureau member? Call us at 309-557-2689. Or visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Awfully quiet today in Chicago. Down just a little bit for corn. May corn down 0.5, 359.5. July down 3/4, 368. December down 3/4, 387 3/4. May soybeans are up 2, 897 1/4. July up 1 3/4, 910 1/2. November up 1 1/4, 929 1/2. Soy meal up $1, soybean oil up a penny. And May wheat up 1 3/4, 462 1/4. July up 0.5 cent, 466. Hog futures are sharply lower today. May down $1.87, 86.52. They have moved in both directions quite a bit this week. June cattle currently are up 15 cents, 120.57. I'm DeLoss Yankee on the RFD Radio Network. Welcome back. Joining us in the studio, we're pleased to have Lindsey Ramsey, Assistant Director of Natural and Environmental Resources at Illinois Farm Bureau. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Very well, thank you. We were talking, so before we turn the mics on, this was a fascinating part of a discussion that I had not considered about, there's now state label as well as the federal label for we're going to use dicamba to spray weeds in soybean fields. Mm-hmm. The whole thing about the June 30 cutoff date, that is just part of the issue here. So if I'm not, but if I'm going to plant soybeans today, June 30 does not come into play.
Right.
Which to me that seemed, I thought that was a natural thing, but we don't want people to think, oh well, now that there's June 30, that supersedes the 45-day cutoff window.
Right. Yeah, this is something that is kind of new for everybody. The state special local needs labels, what we're calling the 24C, which is just the avenue that the state used to get this state label, is in addition to the federal label. So the cutoff date is a perfect example. The state said you can't use the product after June 30th, but that is in addition to the requirements on the federal label, which say for soybeans, there's a 45-day window post-planting in which you can use the product, or if your soybeans reach R1, that's your cutoff. So adding the June 30th date is actually whichever of those three comes first, that's your stopping point in the season.
So there are two things here. So I planted May 1, and it may have taken them a while for them to come up, or or whatever happens. So if I planted May 1 and they're already at R1, I mean, I can't come back at this thing midway through their growing stage and use this as a rescue treatment. No,
definitely not. And I think the cutoff date was the state's attempt to enforce something, right? It's really hard for state employees to go out and regulate a growth stage of a soybean, right? They can't, when they're investigating misuse, it's very difficult for them to get out and say, were the soybeans at this stage or not? Yeah. Or, was it 45 days post-planting based on a piece of paper? It's hard. So the state said, we need a harder cutoff date for our employees to be able to regulate. So that's one reason. The second reason I think that they went to a cutoff date was to get at those precautions or the advice from university weed scientists that say you need to use these products very, very early in the season. U of I, Missouri, Purdue, Ohio State, they have all come out, their weed scientists, and said you need to use this pre-emergence, pre-planting, pre-emergence. You need to use it. If you have to use it post, it needs to be super, super early post.
Mm-hmm. Not 40 days post, but maybe 2 or 3 weeks post. So, yeah, we've talked about that quite a bit. See, I had not considered that, but I would hate for someone to come back afterward and say, well, I thought I had until June 30. Because that is a reasonable scenario now.
Yeah, it is confusing. I think we've, from the Farm Bureau perspective, we've tried to put out some information through podcasts and flyers and things to our network of county farm bureaus and our members to say this is how these state labels work in conjunction with the federal label, and especially for the cutoff date. It is whichever of these comes first, right? So there's the law, there's the labels, there's complying with the labels, and then there's also best practices, and we're trying to talk in both worlds. You have to follow these rules, but also think very critically about your season and, the plans that you may have to throw in the trash and have a new plan given the weather and all these sorts of things. So think about those in terms of both compliance and best practices.
And this also goes with double crop, where someone would say, well, look, I still had 45 days. So, which rules here, because you have that June 30, which would then supersede the 45 days.
Yes. So double crop is a perfect example. The university guidance is out there saying there's a couple reasons why we say go as early as possible. One is because there's not much else growing around you early in the season, mm-hmm. right? That could potentially receive some damage. So, and also the temperature is lower earlier in the season, so less chance
fewer inversions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to give credit to our university scientists that are giving some guidance here, and have been studying these products for a long time. And we want to help people stay within the label and comply, but we also want to stress those best practices.
I made this comment also yesterday that if you say we need to get the number of complaints down, I mean, that is accurate. We would like these number of complaints to go down, but that's not really the point here. That would just be a direct result of this whole thing working better.
Yeah, our goal is to help agriculture collectively solve this problem together, right? I think one of the discouraging things about this issue is that it's pitted farmer against farmer, or industry against farmer, or university scientists against industry, or whatever the conflict is. And I think with a lot of preparation and a lot of, good stewardship, we can do our best to have a successful season.
Some of those things, though, that the state label doesn't still touch, even things like 1 hour after sunrise to after sunset. I mean, all those things are all still there. Plus record keeping, quite important.
Yeah, the label is very complex. I would say if you're a Farm Bureau member and you are interested in just hearing me talk a little bit more about some of these more specifics, we have a couple of informational items out there. You can contact your county Farm Bureau and get some PowerPoint slides and information where we just kind of talk through some of those issues. And I think this is something that we're able to talk about on these particular labels, but it's actually, they've been trends in pesticide regulation that we've been watching from the state perspective happen to places like California and Oregon and, states out west, that it's a trend in how these labels are written and the considerations that they're giving to endangered species or downwind buffers, things like that. These are all trends that we're seeing now come to Illinois, and we foresee them being a part of labels into the future. So we're spending a lot of time right now trying to explain all of those pieces because this is something we're going to need to know more about, into the future.
Lindsay Ramsey, Illinois Farm Bureau, Assistant Director of Natural and Environmental Resources. That's a fascinating point then. For someone who says, I don't grow soybeans. Or for someone who says, I use Liberty Link, so I don't have to worry about this. But maybe not for this particularly, but just what you were alluding to is this is part of the new normal. So this may not impact what you do on the farm today, but could very well next year or a couple years down the road. Yeah,
I think so. And, take the product-specific training, for example, right, that was required now for 2 years in a row. That's something that has worked, and if you're a state that's looking to for an avenue to address pesticide education, that could be something you pull the trigger on a different product. I don't know that, but it's just something that we're kind of trying out a lot of different things right now that I foresee being used in the future.
Lindsay Ramsey, Illinois Farm Bureau. We'll continue that in just a moment. Hey, sell it now, sell it fast with Farm Week Classifieds. Call the toll-free number 800-573-6120 or submit online at farmweeknow.com. Let's check livestock markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Illinois Direct Hog Market has held firm all week, $46 to $56 a hundredweight. Sow market has been pretty steady this week as well, top of 45 for lightweights, 49 for heavyweights. Heavy boars at the top of 15. Greenville this week, slaughter steers and heifers on high choice were down $1 to $1.50, and low choice and selects were $2 lower. Steers, mostly choice, steers and heifers at the top of 125. High-yielding steers at 128, heifers 129. Prime steers hit up to 130, prime heifers at 132. Low choice and select, though, from 110 to 118. On feeders, 6-weight feeder steers from 110 to 140. 7-weights with a top of 115. 6-weight heifers a top of 1 1/4. DeLoss Yankee, RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org.
Welcome back. Final segment on RFD today here on a Friday. Again, continuing our conversation with Lindsay Ramsey, Assistant Director of Natural Environmental Resources at Illinois Farm Bureau. Having all these conversations, and we'll continue to have all these conversations, and the more we do it, the closer we get to U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah.
That's, next thing you know, that's right around the corner now, isn't it? Talking about monarch butterflies.
Yeah, we are still working on this issue of endangered species, and this is a really unfortunate but kind of interesting coincidence that the dicamba labels talk about endangered species in a specific way,
right?
Because those worlds are colliding, and we are heading towards a June decision for the monarch butterfly, but there are other pollinators that are being considered for listing at sort of a rapid pace by the federal government. So we've been doing a lot on advocating for farmers about the conservation that they do on farms to take care of these species voluntarily, and showing like the good faith work that farmers do. To say we don't need these things on a list, we can take care of them otherwise, and having really good conversations with the service and others about those topics.
April 15 is also, that's literally right around the corner, which is the deadline for Clean Water Rule.
Yes, yep, we are getting close to the deadline. So if you haven't participated in the action request, now's your chance to do so. And we are taking participation from our members just to show, again, that we're engaged in the issue. We want US EPA to understand that we appreciate their efforts to rewrite the definition of the Clean Water Rule, of what is a water of the U.S. I think there's some great improvements that have been made in the language. And they're also asking for input on some of the remaining questions. And so I know Lauren has worked hard on our official Illinois Farm Bureau comments, which will be filed on Monday on the deadline, and it's robust. We worked with technical advisors and scientists to help inform those comments, and it's encouraging to see the agency take this route in defining a water of the U.S.
Yeah. Now, the individuals doesn't necessarily have to be robust. You can go to FB.org, American Farm Bureau's website, and you can find it right there on the homepage. Or, you could just do it from your phone and be done in a couple of minutes. So it doesn't have to be, a huge essay.
When we've had, I should say that you're right, there's been a lot of people participating just texting or shooting a quick email to the agency, but we've had a large number of our members write really great substantive comments as well, saying, here's my story on my farm, here's how this definition impacts me, and that is so impactful for the agency to hear. So if you've done one of those comments, we thank you. That's something that helps us continue to make our case. This is not going to be over April 16th, right? This is something we're going to be continuing to work on for a long time.
Part of the process. Yeah. By the way, getting back to the dicamba, I had this discussion yesterday with a person who's involved in research. It's one thing to have the label, it's one thing to have all these things in place, but if the operator doesn't have the right nozzles, or so much of this goes, directly to application time. So we have to have all those things in place to properly execute all of this.
Yeah, I would say if you haven't read your labels at this point, you need to go home right now and begin reading and making sure that you're prepared to follow all of those requirements and use the correct equipment. Think about the timing aspect. There's also, in the state label, it talks about looking for sensitive crops through the FieldWatch platform, which if you haven't registered on FieldWatch, I highly recommend it if you're going to apply any sort of pesticide this year. FieldWatch has created some amazing tools for applicators and has new functionality now. So it's not only a best practice and it's a really cool tool, but it's actually required now that you go to that site and at least look around and see what's around you. There's some DNR information that has to be taken into account per the state label now. You need to know where nature preserves are located in the state. So we're putting out information about that. It'll be in Monday's Farm Week and a couple of other resources coming out soon. So you need to start studying and making sure you have all the information to comply with these labels if you haven't already started down that road.
We just talked about voluntary stuff, but because I'm putting information on this website, and people may say, now, wait, what do you want me to do again? But this Drift Watch is part of the whole deal.
Yeah, so the federal label says you must consult a sensitive crop registry, and you have to document that in your record keeping. What the state did was they say, we want you to go to Field Watch specifically. That's a tool that Illinois Farm Bureau is a supporter of, as well as the state agencies. We all sort of put resources to that tool to make it really robust for folks. So now you have to go to Field Watch and at least look around and document what's around you before every application.
Lindsay, good stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lindsay Ramsey at Illinois Farm Bureau. And while we have a minute here, the 2017 Census of Agriculture was released yesterday. Information was released yesterday. 2.04 million farms and ranches is down 3% from the 2012 survey. The average age of the farmer is 57.5, up 1.2 years from 2012. 321,000 young producers age 35 or younger. 1 in 4 producers is a beginning farmer with 10 years or fewer of experience, and more females involved in agriculture, especially as key decision makers, than 5 years before. I'm DeLoss Yankees and Watch Your Ends. We'll be back in studio again on Monday.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.